tropical rainforests, soaring cliffs, cerulean seas, cascading waterfalls. This remote island is home to Kauai's Hindu Monastery, a center of global outreach for Hinduism and intense spiritual practice, leading to experience of the divine within all. Its guru lineage is rooted in the Saiva tradition of Sri Lanka and South India, extending back 2,200 years to the Himalayas. The monastery was founded by Satguru Savaya Subramunia Swami and thrives today under the guidance of Satguru Bodhinatha Velanswami. In the Kadavul Temple, visitors encounter the powerful blessings of gods Shiva, Ganesha, and Kartikeya. Against the majestic backdrop of Mount Waialeale sits the crown jewel, the all-granite, hand-carved Iraivan Temple, inspired by Guru Deva's mystical visions of Shiva. Here, Bodhinatha and 24 tireless monks live a joyous life committed to God realization, worship of Shiva, and selfless religious service. They grow their own food and wear hand-spun robes. Yet hidden amidst it all, there dwells a high-tech world where monks sit at Macintosh computers, crafting books, videos, websites, and the international magazine Hinduism Today. We invite you to explore our resource-rich website, where Hinduism meets the future.
One of the highlights of Bodhinatha's and Centralnatha Swami's recent 3-week trip to Texas was a weekend seminar with national leaders of the Hindu Students Association and Brahmachari Girishji of Chinmaya Mission. This senior leadership spiritual weekend in Austin was a much-needed time of personal knowledge development in Hinduism for these young leaders, and an opportunity for them to get their many questions answered. The Vaikasi Vishakam festival to Lord Murugan was held in May, complete with elaborate Abhishekam. This year, we were blessed to have a special guest priest, Venkata Krishna Svaiswarna, who chanted throughout and guided the decoration of the deity. Brahmachari Jaya took his 4 vows and was accepted into the monastery as a postulant. His new name is Sadaka Jayananda. This was a great day for the monastic order, to have another dedicated soul join Bodhinatha and his team of monks. Satguru Bodhinatha Velanswami and Acharya Aramuganatha Swami traveled to Washington, D.C. as guests of the Hindu American Foundation for their annual D.C. Days events. The main activity was Bodhinatha's giving of the opening prayer at the June 4th session of the U.S. House of Representatives. Watch the full video of the prayer at the URL on screen. The Nandi Mandapam stones that have been carved at our worksite in Bengaluru and the massive Hanuman statue have finally arrived at the monastery.
The full moon in July is the day of the Satguru Purnima festival. Our early morning ceremony began with a chariot parade up the San Marga to the Swayambhu Lingam, where the monks performed Pada Puja to Satguru Bodhinatha Velanswami. Being surrounded by nature in the early morning in Hawaii adds to the charm of the moment. An extended-length video of the festival can be seen at the URL on screen. Sadhaka Tejadevanada received Diksha as a Nirvana Sadhaka, a senior lay brother. After more than 12 years of service and having completed his 3 solitary sojourns in the world, he received his mala of large Rudraksha beads. Bodhinatha then signed his vow book and blessed him as he continues his dedicated life of service to Saiva Siddhanta Church as Nirvani Tejadevanada. Travel to Europe by Swamis from Kauai's Hindu monastery is quite rare. Upon their return from a month there in July, 2 of our Swamis highlighted their visits with fellow sannyasins. In Barcelona, Spain, at the Omkarananda Ashram in Switzerland, the Vedanta Center in France, and the Gita-ananda Ashram in Italy, they gathered with Swamis to talk about the state of Hinduism and renunciate life in the West, establish informal alliances, and collaborate on projects.
In August, Sadhguru Bodhinatha Velanswamy presided over the annual Nallur festival at the Murugan Temple in Maryland, with its pujas, abhishekams and homas. It included the traditional parade of the Utsava Murti of Lord Murugan around the temple, accompanied by devotees performing kavati. Members and students in Mauritius gathered to witness initiations and brahmacharya vows. This annual visit to the island in the Indian Ocean also included an aloha dinner for members and students, at which the youth performed a skit based on Himalayan Academy's recent children's storybooks. The small clay Ganeshas that had been handcrafted by the monks, Bodhinatha's devotees, and Kauai Hindu youth received a special arati and were paraded on a decorated palanquin to the Wailua River to be submerged in the sacred waters, symbolizing Lord Ganapati's release into universal consciousness. We enjoyed the company of 4 sadhus from the BAPS Swami Narayan Sanstha for several days in September. Chaitanya Murti Swami, Bhadrashta Swami, Mangalnide Swami, and Param Vivek Swami had some wonderful discussions with Bodhinatha and the Swamis of our publications team. They gifted to the monastery a copy of their newly completed Swami Narayan Bhashyam, a 6-volume commentary on the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra. Bodhinatha gifted the BAPS organization a hard drive containing the complete manuscript collections of the French Institute of Pondicherry and the School of the Far East. Of special interest to the BAPS Sanskrit scholars will be the many Vaishnava scriptures contained in that collection. At the end of September, the monastery hosted nearly 36 Hawaii state legislators, staff, and community representatives who were visiting various state-funded projects on our island. The legislators heard an introduction to the monastery from Senator Ron Kochi, who, for 5 years, worked with Guru Deva on a plan for Kauai's future and various other community projects. Senator Kochi confided that Guru Deva was, quote, the most important influence of my adult life, and characterized the monks as a group always willing to help the community.
Every year on the Chitra Nakshatra in October-November, our Gurudeva Sivaya Subramania Swami, the founder of Kauai's Hindu monastery, is honored and remembered with special ceremony. The monks worked hard to make it a special one, acknowledging this 12th annual event. Over a 4-day period, 2 priests officiated several elaborate homas and pujas, for which a 16-foot square yagasala with a 5-tiered pyramidal altar was built inside the Banyan Mandapam. 100 devotees, including the monks and local members, gathered to celebrate Gurudeva's life and legacy. A Namakarana Samskara, membership vows, and initiations into chanting the Om Namah Shivaya mantra took place, and daily satsangs with Bodhinatha centered around understanding energies and meditation. Gurudeva's presence and continuing blessings were felt by all. The Narmada stream is flowing again now that its source, the Wailua Reservoir, has been refurbished. The sound of its trickling waters can once again be heard throughout the monastery, and pilgrims can again perform abhishekam to the outdoor Narmada Lingam using the water that flows nearby.
In November, the monastery observed the final day of Skandashashti, a 6-day festival honoring Lord Muruga's conquest of light over darkness with a wonderful abhishekam. Many of the pilgrims who had come to Kauai to observe Gurudeva's 12th anniversary Mahasamadhi memorial services stayed on to help the monks celebrate. The January, February, March 2014 issue of Hinduism Today contains Sadhguru Bodhinatha Velanswamy's Publisher's Desk editorial. Entitled, A 10-Minute Spiritual Workout, the editorial is aimed at high school and university students who have no daily practice. Bodhinatha recognizes that these are busy years and a longer routine can prove impossible to sustain. Hopefully the shortness and the fact that it can be done at any time of day motivates our young Hindus to practice it daily.
On December 17, we celebrated Ardra Darshanam, one of 2 yearly festivals where all the monastics assist in the puja in one capacity or another, the other being Mahashivaratri. This allows the monastery to make the puja elaborate, including our now signature 108 coconut abhishekam. As usual, the vibration created by the lengthy abhishekam to Nataraja was powerful and uplifting. Last year, the sculpting of the side panels for the front steps for Iraivan Temple was started at our Bangalore carving site. These panels are now nearing completion. The future temple landscaping project was energized by the receipt of a superlative collection of plants. Hundreds of young plants were repotted and placed in the monastery nursery. The monastery has a new tool, a 4-rotor miniature remote-controlled helicopter, also known as a quadcopter. Loaded with high-tech stabilization equipment and other gadgetry, the tool, okay, perhaps it's a toy, allows us to shoot beautiful virtual tours of Iraivan Temple and the grounds, take aerial survey photos and video of the monasteries and surrounding lands, and more. Sadaka Mayuranada, our chief pilot, questions whether it's legal to have this much fun.
On the morning of January 16th, an elaborate abhishekam was held in Kauai Temple to Lord Murugan on the occasion of Thaipusam. Our shrine to Lord Murugan comes to life on his special festival days, and this year was no exception. Recently, Girish Shanmugam arrived from Singapore, and on January 5th, Gurudeva's Jayanti, Brahmachari Girish took his sacred pledge as a Sivanadiyar. Having already taken the vows of purity, he now takes on 2 more vows, the vow of humility and the vow of confidence. This pledge declares his intention towards the life of monasticism, as he now begins the final process by which he will ready himself for the life of a postulant. The current focus of our carvers in Bengaluru is now on the perimeter wall. They are also working on the polished stone Purnakumbhas that will grace the top of the wall. Also, the granite base for the 3-dimensional map of Kauai, decorated with Hawaii sea creatures, has been completed. As of January 1st, 2014, the Adinam has secured a 35-year lease on 312 acres of state-owned agricultural land across the river from the monastery. We first acquired this parcel in 2001, just before Gurudeva's Mahasamadhi. He named it Himalayan Acres. Until now, the Kauai lease was on a year-to-year basis with the possibility of losing the land at any time. Now it will be secure, far into the future. Most of the land is being used to grow hardwood trees. The future value of these hardwoods is subject to much speculation, but experts tell us that quality hardwoods have been valuable for more than 2,000 years and will remain so in the future.
Mahashivaratri, which took place on February 27th, is one of the 2 days of the year when all the monks worship as a group in Kauai Temple. Everyone who attends has the feeling that they are joining in with the monks in their personal worship. A talk by Gurudeva about Shiva was played, followed by a talk by Bodhinatha, elaborating on the 9 ways to merge with Shiva. After successful youth workshops in Trinidad and Texas, Satguru Bodhinatha Velanswamy participated in the 4th Interfaith Panel event in Midland, Texas on February 19th. Bodhinatha, the only out-of-towner, was joined by a Jewish rabbi, a Catholic Monsignor, an Episcopal bishop, and a Baptist pastor in answering questions posed by the community. The clergy group has developed a camaraderie over the past 4 years that displayed itself in an increased cordiality and respectful banter.
Non-Christian children are frequently told by their peers that they are going to go to hell. Knowing that such comments can create fear and insecurity in young minds, how would you address this topic with your congregation? Dr. Everett.
I know sometimes we may come across as uncaring to people of other religions when we talk to them about that, but if we believe that there is a heaven and hell, and we didn't mention that to someone, then wouldn't you believe we loved you less or really didn't believe what we claim to believe?
Many times younger kids are simply parroting what they hear at church or at home. It is really more of a sense of ignorance or a fear of diversity to say, I need to pray for your soul, or to say, you're going to go to hell, or to say, why don't you believe?
This question came as a kind of a surprise to me because I'm just not used to intimidating somebody by saying, if you don't do such and such, you're going to go to hell. That's simply not the way we approach things.
I remember talking to one father here in Midland about this very point, and he was upset that his child had been approached. And what became apparent to me was that the child didn't have a ready answer, that was really part of the problem. The child had no clue what to say if approached in this way. And therefore, my response was that we need to train our children, if they're Hindu children, in this case, what to say. So in this case, I believe the child was around 10 years old, so you need a very simple answer at the 10-year-old level, and he had been told he was going to go to hell because he didn't believe a certain way. So I thought a good answer was, well, in our religion, everyone goes to heaven. It's a pretty good answer, I thought. Well, why is that? Well, the Hindu believes in reincarnation. Not that everyone is a saint in this life and qualifies for permanent residence in heaven, but that over a period of lives, we all become more and more spiritual and do eventually end up in heaven. We never want to criticize any religion and never want to dissuade a member of any religion from following it. However, when it comes to this type of conversion effort of children to children, we do feel it needs to be criticized.
In our Episcopal schools, we've always had people from many, many different backgrounds and religious communities. Everyone is welcome together. We're in a search for the truth and wanting to learn how to live the virtuous lives, and it means everyone is to be honored. And this kind of behavior is just not acceptable at all.
A class from the local Kauai charter school visited the monastery. The school's curriculum is entirely in the Hawaiian language until 5th grade, after which it continues with an hour of Hawaiian each day. On the way to Iraivan Temple, they offered a beautiful Hawaiian chant. Brother David Steindorast, a senior Catholic monk of the Benedictine order, originally from Austria, also visited during March. He and his small group were given a tour of the grounds, after which they met with Satguru Bodhinatha Velanswami and the Swamis. Brother David actively promotes the practice of gratefulness and was involved, along with Gurudeva, in past interfaith forums in Oxford and Moscow a quarter-century ago. 2 new purebred Jersey cows arrived from the mainland. One is pregnant. We already have 1 cow who is part Jersey in our small herd, but the other 3 are Holsteins. For those unaware, Holsteins are large and can be rather aggressive, but Jerseys are small, gentle, and have the richest milk. Marvelous and salute. They have yet to receive their Hindu names, are clearly happy to be here, and ready for many relaxed days of munching down on our Kauai grasses.
Om Namah Shivaya. We just want to give everyone a short update on Iraivan Temple. Right now on the island, we are focused on landscaping and clearing around the Iraivan Temple with a lot of rocks and earthwork happening. The work is progressing really well in our Bangalore carving sites. The major work right now is the Nandi Mandapam stones, which is projected to finish either end of May or early June. Thereafter, our team will be focusing on perimeter wall. It's close to 500 linear feet of wall, approximately 4 feet tall, forms the hand railing around the temple foundation. And our team's goal is to have a section carved so that we can estimate how much time it will take to carve the entire wall. So we hope by August our team will be able to determine that estimate. Also planning to ship about 2 containers minimum end of this May, which will carry mostly the Nandi Mandapam stones and also the brass base for the Spadigalingam or the Avudayar, where the Spadigalingam will be mounted, and also various other bronze items and brass items, which will include the 5 Panchabrahma Murtis that goes around the Iraivan Sanctum, the Isana, Tatpurusha, Agora, Vamadeva, and Satyojata. So this is a short update. we hope to see you in Kauai sometime soon. Om Namah Shivaya and aloha.
Carving of the remaining stones of the Nandi Mandapam continues with great energy at our worksite in Bangalore. The Mandapam is like a small temple in front of the larger Iraivan Temple, and it will be the most elaborately carved of Iraivan stones. This is due to the smaller size, just 15 feet on each side, and also to the new tools that have evolved in just the last few years. The Silpis are working on the final embellishment of the ceiling panels. Most recently, they finished 5 of the 8 decorative stone chains which hang from the edges of the roof. They're also working on the perimeter wall that will surround the temple. As you can imagine, managing a carving site is no easy task. We are very grateful to the Jiva Raja Shankara family for so boldly rising to the occasion. Here is Paramacharya Sada Shivanatha Swami explaining how it all happened.
Back in the 1990s, when we had just gotten our Bengaluru village going, we had a manager of the property who was overseeing all of the Silpis. We had 75 families and craftsmen there. And that manager had to leave, and Gurudeva was in a bind. Without a manager, you can't have all these people working every day. So he reached out to a family in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, the Jiva Raja Shankara family. And at the time, Jiva was a bank manager at a big bank in Kuala Lumpur. That was his whole career. And his wife was busy raising their 2 children who were preteen children, 2 sons at the time. Gurudeva was on the phone and he asked him, Jiva, I need you to fly to India and to live there with your family and to manage my temple carving site. Fairly a serious request to come in the middle of someone's career and day, but Jiva was so astonishingly willing and obedient to his guru that right there and then he made the commitment, and very soon he and Kanmani took their 2 sons, Durai and Sentaladiban, to India, set up in a little hovel that we had there at the work site, not much of a house, it was like a shanty almost, and went to work managing all of the shopis, all of the carving, all of the quarry work, bringing the stones out of the quarry, and they're still there today. Amazingly, they essentially moved their entire life to India. They raised and married their boys in India. They now have grandchildren from those marriages, from both of the boys. And it was, to me, personally, an astonishing anecdote, an astonishing story that tells of true devotion to one's guru, that one could change his entire life at a moment's notice because a guru has a need. So we're very proud of Jiva and Kanmani.
The monastery has received more large boulders for the ongoing temple landscaping project. Each boulder is so large that only one at a time can be trucked up to the monastery. The lowboy trailer had to be specifically fitted with a 3/4-inch steel plate for the boulders to sit on. The plan is to use the boulders to create a ridge on the north side of the temple to mimic Mount Waialeale's majesty. Some of the boulders will also be interspersed among the garden's plants, making for a fun experience as pilgrims are dwarfed by their massive presence. If you would like to help build Iraivan Temple, simply go to the URL on screen. That is, hheonline.org/donate to Iraivan.